co-leads the Kapor Center's Equitable Tech Policy Initiative with a focus on inclusive technology policy and special interest in closing the digital divide, scaling new tech workforce models, advocating for responsible emerging technology, as well as providing foundational support across civic engagement issues and tech enablement of civic organizations. Welcome, Lili.
Thank you, thank you. It's nice and windy, thank goodness. We're all here in staying nice and warm. How are you all doing? Welcome to the third annual Lighthouse. And boy, do we need some light in these times. But that's why we're here. We're here together to really start to think, to build a more inclusive future together. So I'll get to the TLDR of why I'm here. I'm here because I want to make sure that we are raising awareness on the increased concentration of power that is hurting our building of an inclusive tech future. That concentration of power is actually stifling innovation, not regulation, like what those tech oligarchs, as we've been seeing in the headlines, want you to think. In fact, today I'm going to share 3 ecosystem changes that are critical in this moment for economy, democracy, and leadership globally. 1, where are my philanthropy folks in the room? Raise your hand. All right. Well, we got to talk because there's a much needed evolution of philanthropy. Philanthropy is the new risk capital of technology, and I'll share a little bit more about that. 2, tech policy is policy. Where are my policy advocates folks in the room? Raise your hands. All right, all right. Well, we also got to talk, my fellow tech policy, because no longer is tech policy just tech policy. It has to be embedded in all the policies that we do, specifically being able to protect our communities from the tech implications in our safety and our education. 3, where are the investors in the room? Raise your hand if you're an investor. LP, okay, there we go. We also got to talk because we need to start creating alternatives to the fork in the road of venture capital. So for my background, as you heard, I'm Lili Gangas, the Chief Tech Community Officer at the Kapor Foundation, where over the past years, we published reports over the past decade with large organizations like the NAACP, Hispanic Heritage Foundation, ACES to help identify where those opportunity gaps still exist. And sadly, those numbers are not changing. And that's why we are here, because we desperately need something different. I won't bore you with all the stats, but I do want to highlight some of the key ones. As Latina professionals, even though we're close to 20% of the entire U.S. workforce and represent 78% of the net new workers currently, we still account for less than 10% of these high-tech jobs. For the Black representation has remained stagnant over the past decade when we're seeing some of the largest wealth being generated with representation of less than 7%. And for women, on International Day of Women, which is today, let's get some shout out for all the ladies and all the allies that we gotta support. Well, sadly, in almost 20 years, our numbers, despite being close to a quarter of the population, more than half of the population, we're still less than a quarter of the folks who are being able to develop these technologies. And while all of this is happening in the workplace, we're actually being even more diversified amidst the 4th industrial revolution that is changing physical, digital, and biological ways of what it means to be human. So this impacts all of us. We, the people, right? Can I hear in the crowd? We are the people. We need to recenter us as people in these changes. So I'll give you just a quick stats and we'll do an imagining exercise. Close your eyes. Think about the year 2050. Think about who's there, what are we working on, what does the world look like? And as you're thinking about it, I'll just share some quick stats. The Census Bureau projects by 2050, the number of African Americans will have grown by 30%. The number of Hispanic Latina would have increased by 60%. The number of Asian Americans would have more than doubled. Immigrants and their children currently account for 26% of the population. By then, it will be over a third. And right now, close to 45% of children under 18 are under 18 and they are older than 65. Let me rephrase that. Today, there are 45% more children under the age of 18 than there are people over 65. By 2050, adults 65 and over will outnumber children. And if we are able together, that means that will be us. Globally, we're already seeing Africa, India, and China outnumbered by population alone. So this means that diverse communities are shaping the future, yet we're remaining sidelined in tech. So how are we going to do this, especially as not accepting the reality that AI is reshaping our economy, daily lives, and safety? So again, back to my philanthropy folks here. Raise your hand again. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I want you to keep your hands raised. Are you funding expanding access to CS education in the K through 12, especially AI literacy, as we're seeing our Department of Education be gutted? And if you're not, I'm going to need you to do that. Are you funding workforce training programs that are helping reskill and upskill talent for AI-driven jobs? If not, oh great. Yes, we're going to need you to keep doing more of that. Are you funding interdisciplinary research that's helping uncover gaps of how AI automation and bias is affecting our communities? If not, I'm going to need you to do that as well. Are you helping fund entrepreneurial ecosystems, supporting funding of accelerators, incubators, and different programs that are creating the much-needed spaces of our community for those who are helping build alternatives to the dominant technologies and companies? So I got to see some hands. And if you're not, we're going to need you to fund that as well. Great. We're going to go now to our next point, our policy. Raise your hand again. Who are my policy advocate folks in the room? Great. There we go. So as we're seeing, the federal government continues to test the power of federal to state to local. And we're seeing all the rollbacks of regulations that protected our civil rights and digital rights for so long. That's why the Kapor Foundation, we developed our 9 policy priority issues. Safe plug there, so make sure you go download it because we have a lot of stuff there. But for the advocate folks in the policy, raise your hand if you're currently advocating for AI accountability, specifically helping require companies and state agencies who are deploying AI and hiring public service and other human services to conduct third-party audits for racial and gender bias. Are you doing that? All right, because I'm going to need you to keep doing more of that as well. How many of you are advocating for stronger worker tech protections in tech, specifically helping close the wage disparity that we're seeing by racial and gender groups? And if you're not doing that, we're going to need you to advocate for that as well. Are you helping advocate for policies that are banning how AI is being used to discriminate and create higher discrepancies and creating disparate impact? Well, I'm going to need you to do that as well. And lastly, I need you for the folks who are investing in the tech public interest infrastructure. Are you investing in broadband and AI literacy training in your communities? If not, I'm going to need you to do that as well. You know how this goes. Are you investing in HBCUs, tribal colleges, HSIs? Well, now you know. I'm going to need you to do that as well. Last but not least, going back to my investor friends, raise your hand. I see them in the back. Keep your hands raised. Because we have a lot of conversation over here, but I'm running out of time, so I'll go real fast. Did you know that just already into 2025, we're already seeing $2 trillion of assets under management in the VC space? That's second to private equity. However, what we're also seeing is increases homogeneous networks of 9 specific venture capital firms who are managing over 46% of all that new funding that came in last year. Last year as well, we also had deals that were some of the largest. $10 billion for Databricks, $6.6 billion for OpenAI, even $1.5 billion for an AI and defense startup. So we need to be crystal clear. What are the drivers in this true fork road in venture capital? Is it going to continue to create wider gaps of access, or will it close them? So to my investors again, I need you to take down these notes because I have some instructions for you. To help close these gaps, if you're an LP, an institutional investor, we're going to need you to fund an alternative affirming vision of technology that benefits and serves humanity as opposed to surveilling and undermining our digital rights. We need you to enforce data transparency across the capital stack. We need you to invest in founders with the lived experiences of what they're trying to solve. And not widen them. We also want to make sure that you're increasing not just funding for the entrepreneurs, but for the actual fund managers. We need to make sure that we're providing the opportunity for decision making across the board, from angel investment all the way to IPOs. Currently, Black investors are representing only 4%, with women making just 5%. And me as a Latina, if I was an investor, I would be a marginal error. Can you believe that? Less than 5 Latina women are currently fund managers at the highest level. We definitely have to change that. So investors, friends, please do not be sold on the dominant narrative of building at all costs, and that transparency and guardrails stifle innovation. In fact, that's what's actually going to help us truly innovate in this moment. So as I get ready to close, I want you all to remember that the future of tech is our choice. Some will say it's an economic, some will say it's national security issue, and they're all right. But if we want to lead in this moment and truly lead in an inclusive manner, especially for democracy, which is at stake every single day, we cannot continue to exclude more than half of the people. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm going to ask you again to close your eyes and go back to that vision that you had in 2050. What would that look like? How has that changed? And the question I will leave you all with is, will we invest in a more inclusive tech future? Or will we allow the exclusion of creating some of the greatest national risks that we're doing? So with that said, let's recenter the people. Let's recenter the human. That is all of us here to make sure that we're protecting our journeys, sharing our needs, sharing our histories, and building our futures. So thank you, and have a great rest of your lighthouse. Thank you so much.